All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. As things continue to go from bad to worse for the New York football Giants, this franchise unfortunately continues to operate like a rudderless ship. Now, following today's loss in Munich, Germany to the Carolina Panthers, the Giants have now fallen to 2-8 on the season as they are well on their way to their 10th losing season since their last Super Bowl triumph back in 2011. Today was as winnable a game that the Giants are probably going to have for the entire season. They took on the 2-7 Carolina Panthers, and of course, the Giants fell as that long trip back stateside will be even longer following the 20-17 overtime loss today. You look at it for the Giants, they spotted the Carolina Panthers a 10-0 lead in the first half, three offensive turnovers. I'm going to touch on those in a minute. While defensively, the Giants allowed the Panthers to run up and down the field to the tune of 188 yards on the ground. So, of course, if you're watching all of this, and you're a New York Giants fan, you probably got to ask yourself, hey, when is enough going to be enough? Because you're just tired of losing, you're tired of the foolishness, whatever adjective you want to use to describe it. But nonetheless, there's a lot of places you can go with this. For one thing, I'm going to start off by saying here is how many different head coaches is quarterback Daniel Jones going to get fired before this organization realizes, hey, he is not the guy and he is not a starting NFL quarterback? I've said this before and I'm going to say it again and I'm going to keep saying it. The Giants cannot, and I repeat, cannot go another off season without properly addressing the quarterback position. You look at it, I know that the Giants had their sights on Drake May. I know that the Giants had their sights on Jaden Daniels, and they couldn't make the moves to go up to get him. But if you're New York, was it a mistake passing on J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, or Michael Penix Jr. in April's NFL draft? Okay. And the reason why I say it is this: I said it then and I'll continue to say it. Daniel Jones is not the guy. Daniel Jones cannot get it done. And people, in my opinion, need to stop making excuses for him. It's one of those where John Mara, the Giants co owner, is going to be very interesting because he's thrown the support behind head coach Brian Dayball, behind general manager Joe Shane. But is he going to allow them to draft their quarterback, or will that duty fall into someone else's lap? Because the Giants are drafting a quarterback next year. I really thought that they were going to do it this year, and they surprised me, and they surprised a lot of people by not doing it. And again, you can't keep passing the buck down the field. And my other thing is this: at 2-8, after losing their last five going into their bye, how patient is John Mara going to be over the second half of the season? And how willing is John Mara going to be to start over? Because one thing that recently John Mara has cited has been stability in that organization. And you look at it, just for the sake of argument, let's say the Giants do decide to move on from Brian Dayball. Let's say the Giants decide to move on from Joe Shane as well, or let's just say they decide to move on from the head coach. Regardless, there's some starting over that you have to do, and especially when it comes from the general manager standpoint, because hey, everybody under him is on pins and needles because whoever comes in, like all of those guys are not people that he brought in. So how willing is John Mara going to be to start over that process? I'm not for it. I'm not against it, but I'm just saying, throwing it out there. How willing is he going to be to do that? But getting back to this season, is it time for the Giants to bench Daniel Jones? And for me, I'm going to say yeah, because you look at it throughout Jones's career, his record is now 24, 44, and 1 as a starting quarterback. And in six of seasons with the Giants, Jones has only thrown 70 touchdown passes. Some of the great quarterbacks in the NFL do that in a year and a half, if not 2 years. Okay. You're not going to get any better with Daniel Jones. He is what he is, and that's not an NFL starting quarterback. Now, the options behind him in the quarterback room, if you're the Giants, aren't that great either. But Drew Lock or Tommy DeVito at this point have to be in the mix to be starting games for the Giants going forward. Why? Because New York has an out on Daniel Jones's contract, and of course, they're trying to avoid that injury clause. Well, guess what? If he's standing on the sideline with a clipboard in his hand and an earpiece in his ear, you know what? He can't do any damage right there. So, regardless of who's running the front office for the Giants next year, Daniel Jones's days as a Giants starting quarterback are numbered. So, if you're the Giants front office, you cannot hamstring yourself going forward with this anymore. And it's so unfortunate for the Giants because after so much success in the 1980s under Bill Parcells, you think about the late 90s when Jim Fossil got things turned around. And of course, they did get to the Super Bowl back in 2000 on his watch. And then, of course, he made way for Tom Coughlin. And Tom Coughlin, like Parcells, was able to lead the Giants to a pair of Super Bowl victories. But how did things become so bad for the New York Giants? I mean, you look at it after that Super Bowl win, the Giants have really done a bad job of drafting, not just in the first round, but the later rounds as well. That's where you build your teams. That's where you build your depth. And it's unfortunate because for so long, under former Giant GMs, George Young and Ernie Accorsi, respectively, they shored it up. They did a good job of drafting people. They did a good job of bringing in the right personnel, whether it was coaches, players, you name it. And it just has not been that way for so long for one of the NFL's flagship franchises. Okay, but getting back to the current general manager of the Giants, he hasn't done too good of a job himself. Finding that talent in round one. You think about it, Evan Neal. A lot of questions about him on the offensive line. Kayvon Thibodeau has shown flashes. Deontay Banks is looking at like a guy more and more that was unworthy of being taken in the first round. And then you have Malik Neighbors. And of course, the jury, in my opinion, is going to be out on Malik Neighbors until he gets himself a quality quarterback that's going to throw him the football. So you also look at it like this. Are the Giants in need of a culture change? Absolutely, because just like winning is infectious, so is losing. I mean, you just look at the double digit loss seasons that the Giants have been racking up. Um, 6-10 in 2014, 6-10 in 2015, 3-13 in 2017, 5-11 in 2018, 4-12 in 2019, 6-10 in 2020, 4-13 in 2021, 6-11 last year. That's a lot of double digit loss seasons. And also, that's a lot of drafting early on in the NFL draft. And when it comes to the NFL draft, when you're picking in the top five and the top 10 and you miss on those picks, especially at the quarterback position, it sets you back. And again, just thinking about how bad that the culture is for the New York Giants right now, just look at what Saquon Barkley is doing with the Philadelphia Eagles. There were some people out there who felt that Saquon was done when he left the Giants. I was not one of them. And you just look at what's happening right now for this young man. Now that he has an upgrade at the quarterback position, an upgrade at the offensive line, an upgrade at the receiver position, an upgrade with an organization altogether. And I guarantee you, if you took some of the other young talent from the Giants and put them in a different culture in the NFL, we would see different players. So, nonetheless, for the Giants, this could get very interesting in a couple of weeks. Of course, they have the bye week. They're the underdogs right now in the bye week, even though they're not playing anybody. But nonetheless, in week number 12, they're home to host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This team still has not won a home game this year. Okay. And I'll tell you like this: Brian Dayball cannot trot Daniel Jones back out there when they play the Bucks because this fan base has to be tired of it. And then on top of that, if you're Brian Dayball, what are you selling to your locker room and saying that hey, Daniel Jones gives us the best option to win at quarterback because he doesn't. And I'm not saying that Drew Lock or Tommy DeVito are the future either, but at this point, anything is better than having to see Daniel Jones back out there for at quarterback for the Giants again. So you look at this organization right now, and first things first, I want to see how the Giants look over the second half of the season. They're clearly not going to the playoffs, but I think if this team does not compete, I think Brian Dayball's days are numbered. Brian Dayball's days could be numbered regardless. As a Giants head coach, of course, we saw the team that shares MetLife Stadium with them go to Europe a couple of weeks ago, lose to the Minnesota Vikings, and then a couple of days later, their owner Woody Johnson decided to move on from Robert Saleh. So the biggest question for me, I think it comes down to will Shane and Dayball be with this organization next year? I'm not sure. But you know what? I'll tell you like this, it ain't looking good. So it's really going to be very interesting. Does John Mara want to start over, or is he going to give Shane and Dayball one more shot with a different quarterback to try to turn things around? But nonetheless, we've seen a lot of lows for the New York Giants, and I know that they're 2-7, and they took on a Carolina Panthers team that was 2-7 entering today as well. But this might be one of the lowest lows for the Giants. Losing to the Panthers last week got Dennis Allen fired as a head coach of the Saints as well. So, but if you're a Giants fan, I don't know what to tell you. It you want to say, you know what? Well, it's got to get worse before it gets better. But at some point, this organization has to figure it out. Unfortunately, that some point ain't right now. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365 that you can check it out. Drop a line to be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.